So we're very fortunate to have that, so we can have this access back to this area, down this wonderful wilderness trail with all the wet mud and everything else. So, so anyways, with that, we've got also Dr. John Kelly. He's with Washington University. Dr. Kelly was one of the principal mentors and overseers of this whole operation back here for many years. I'm not going to go into any more details. I'll let them tell the whole story. With him is his wife, Dr. Cricket Kelly, with Washington University. Also back here, we've got Brian Lure, who is a principal investigator with Mel and excavator on this site. We're really glad Brian's here with us today. Thanks, Brian. And also Fred Farrell, excuse me. Fred has also been working with Mel on this site on some of the excavation work that's been continued to be done here. So we're fortunate we have a lot of experts here with us today that are going to teach us all about this wonderful site. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mel.
And Jim, we cannot forget Jackie Mills.
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah. We better be nice to her.
Jackie Allscheid, Mel's wife. And actually, he's got a lot of his other family here too. Eric and his two daughters. So we've got a lot of Allscheid present here today, which is great. They're very proud of their dad and their grandfather for all this work that he's done back here to protect our heritage. So with that, take it away, Mel.
Okay, I'm Mel, and like he said, we're all just experts up here. Well, we're going to tell you something, whether it's right or wrong. You won't need no question unanswered. I don't know exactly where to start. It's just that this property was purchased in 1972, perhaps. Bought it on the courthouse steps. I had looked at it, and then after I got it, I took my map and my compass, and I come upon this place, and I wanted to see where the lines were when I had purchased it. And I came upon this place, and not knowing whether it was mine or not until I got home and put the map on the proper place. So it turned out to be it is mine. If you look at these pictures, you'll see that when we're standing here, Brian and I started this thing in 96?
Yeah.
And his dad and I were out here some years ago, and Brian caught me at a party one night. He said, "Can we go look at it?" I said, "Let's take a screen along." Well, we started right over about where these people over here are standing, and right off the bat we started finding artifacts, and well, we were hooked. And we spent a lot of time out here. But initially there was trees and everything growing up here, and stumps, and you name it. And when we're standing here, we took off 3 feet of top level. This level was up to here. And these stones here, you see that, we call that back there the monster stone. This is the one here, it's got 16 holes bored in it. But anyhow, we took 3 feet off the top, and it was in 1 foot increments. And we cataloged everything, and Brian kept a daily journal. And well, when we hit this spot, the dirt was orange looking, or sandy looking. And we hit this spot, and the dirt turned the color, you see it, almost black. Brian said, we don't go any deeper. That's when we eventually got John and Cricket over here and looked at it, and Professor Patty Jo Watson. Patty Jo Watson, she's known on here a few times. What was she? She was Dean of All Cave Archaeology, I think. She's a lady that sat on the board of Women's Scientific Achievement, right? What else? What other credentials does she have? She's got many.
National Academy of Science.
She's what?
National Academy of Science.
National Academy of Science. So she's pictured here in a white T-shirt with a logo on the front, and along with John. And but you kind of see how we progressed. It was just wilderness, and we took trees, and we had a shaker, and then later on we took this top 3 feet off. We cut logs, put them out here, and I bought a conveyor. It was a bale conveyor, I think. But anyhow, put the dolly and the motor on about here, and so we were able to just go across it. We would slide it on the logs, and this had a steering end on it. I could pull it. And we had a 7-foot screen set up on it, and we would shake into it, and then when it got full, sometimes we got it too full, right, Brian?
Yeah.
The chain would break, and we spent a lot of time just fixing links. But anyhow, we would, we would convey this stuff out there, and you can see a picture of it, but and basically, the 3 feet that we took off of here, and we found just scads of artifacts. And where we're standing, it's loaded. Everywhere you dig, there's stuff just around here. Just next to it. And they've been here,
excuse me.
according to Kristen, almost 8,000 years. That's the earliest that you can find culture, right? Right. After a while, and somebody wants to shovel, I'll have somebody supervise, but we're gonna do 2 layers, 2 levels. One is only a partial one because the hill drops off, but we're gonna see if we can't find something. And there's a pretty good chance, and if we don't, we don't. That was always a question. You never could understand why is this here? And when you don't find anything, you wonder how come there's nothing here? So it was one of those things. So you never know when you're gonna find. But it is a pretty hot little spot right there on the hillside. I don't know, would you call that a talus slope? Rock? Right. Okay. That's our shaker, and we got a pump set up. Brian and I shoveled, and Brian, he was the shaker and the looker. And, but we used a 1/2-inch screen, and this was real sandy. It went through pretty good until we got to some of this frost on top and leaves and stuff. That was a little problem. But now we're doing it with a 1/4, and we lost some little bitty arrowheads, I suppose, little bitty that we found out that it could actually fall through this 1/2-inch screen. They were that small. So right now we're doing it with a 1/4 inch, and whatever falls through there, God bless it, let it go. So after a while, if we get a chance, we're gonna do a little hands-on, and you can look and ask somebody questions. I'll be down there, and we got 2 aprons in case somebody wants to run the hose, to spray the stuff. We wash it through the screen. And we got a hose and a nozzle, and you spray it. And that's the way and hopefully when you get down to the bottom, you find something pretty. Okay. All my while, I thought she was making funny looks at me. Oh.
She was.
Okay. And afterwards, I'll explain some of these carvings that are in the stone. Unless you want to explain that one is.
Yeah, I'll
C-
talk about it.
Like a CR, I mean,
Choice route.
Charles, you explain that, okay? He left us pretty much in different places. And everybody should know who that FFL is. I don't say everybody, but a lot of people should know who FL is. I've been asked that many times, and I've given them all the same answer. Nobody has a clue, huh? Well, Patty Jo Watson, I asked her one day, and I said, Patty Jo, you should know who this is, a woman of her standing, and she said, I should? I said, yeah, and she's looking. And I found it, I don't let him hang too long. I tell him, that was Freddie Luigi Flintstone. Okay.
That's funny.
Here's John Kelly.
Thank you, Mel. The Allscheid Rock Shelter is one of those, when you realize, in terms of the number of archaeological sites, I think there have been about, I think we're up to about 50,000 sites recorded within the state of Illinois.
Yeah.
That's not all been surveyed. There's probably at least, I think probably 2,000 or 3,000 sites within Monroe County itself. And this is one of those unusual, small, you say important things come in small packages. And this is one of these important things that has come in small packages. Okay. When Brian, I first met Brian when he stopped. I was doing highway work for the.
Hey, Dr. Kelly, can you speak just a little louder?
Okay. See, I never listened to you, do I? I was doing, actually working out of Waterloo next to the post office in the old school in the basement of, what was the dentist's name? Schaller Burler bought it, but anyways, we were in his, working out of there doing surveys in the region. And so one of our surveys was along Bluff Road just south of Fountain Creek. And so we had opened up an area and found a bunch of pits along the edge of the road. And here comes this guy in his pickup, and he stops and he starts asking Brad Koldehoff questions about this. And the next thing we know is Brad is up here. Brad's an archaeologist. He grew up in Millside, Illinois, and he went on to become a professional archaeologist. In fact, he's the Department of Transportation archaeologist now. And so he got involved with Mel and with Brian and started looking at the material. The pot that you see in the picture here, that's from here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they put that together, a late woodland pot. That upper deposit that Mel was talking about, the upper 3 feet, also had evidence that people from Cahokia were even down here at the rock shelter. Yeah. So one of their really distinct pots, or portions of it, were found down here. But what was neat about Brian is he decided, well, I think I should go up to Campsville and learn how to do archaeology if we're going to get involved. And so that's what he did. And then he realized that's probably why he told Mel, you're not going any further till we get some professional help. Well, so we brought,
It's not easy to tell Mel anything.
only Jack. So basically, we got the faculty together. Cricket got her advisor, Professor Fiona Marshall, who works in East Africa, Professor Patty Jo Watson, who's now retired and is a world-famous archaeologist. She worked in Iran, she's worked in the Southwest, and of course Mel talked about the work she's done with cave archaeology here in like Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. And so she is a phenomenal person. They had just gotten a new graduate student, Christy Aronson, and so poor Christy didn't know what she was getting in for. I think she's still recovering.
I think so.
Yeah, I think Mel's going to get his dissertation done first before Christy, but we'll see. And then eventually T.R. Kidder and Professor Broman, so basically the archaeological faculty came out here and Mel showed them around, and I think either Brian or Mel, we had lots of food as usual.
Mm-hmm.
And so Christy got involved, and Christy is a very meticulous, detailed person, as Mel knows. You know, you think of archaeologists with their little whisk brooms plotting everything, plotting thing out, and of course Mel, having been an operating engineer driving those big machineries, this was a pace that that he was not used to. It was like watching paint dry. But nonetheless, what Christy gathered from the deeper deposits, which what we call is archaic, and he has a couple of the archaic type points in his pocket that he's going to share.
Found them right here.
Yeah. And so the important dates, the early dates that he's talking about, some 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, are during a period in the history, the climatic history of the eastern woodlands, in which it was an extremely dry period. We call it the altithermal or the hypsothermal. And this is the prairies that eventually spread across Illinois and all the way to Ohio. This is where they're coming out of. This is an extremely dry period. So people had to find places that they could, one, get water. I assume this is spring fed.
This is, there's always, this dries up right here, but right under the rock down there, there's always water there.
Yeah.
So they can drink.
So native peoples understood their landscape, and so they would come here for, I guess we're still trying to figure out all the reasons. I mean, you can just look at the rich forests that are around here for nuts. You have the animals, deer and squirrel and other animals that are accessible as well. Christy also had a woman who is now at the New York State Museum. I can't think.
Julianne.
Yeah, Van Nest, who we call her a geomorphologist. Basically, she studies the earth. I mean, she studies the actual earth, the dirt. And so they've gotten some very interesting results in terms of that period, in terms of the dryness and what's going on. They can plot the amount of charcoal, they can plot the type of charcoal, and begin to understand the details
Right
of
there
that.
were these two ladies, Jackie and another lady, are standing, they went down 10 feet, and there's a pipe, PVC pipe, still there. And that's where Christy, where them two are standing, that is where she took 2 units all the way to the bottom. 3 meters, there's 3 meters under you here.
Yeah, so over 10 feet of deposits that are here. So, basically, what you have are people utilizing this landscape, and for archaeologists and for the kind of scientific work that we do, beginning to understand that period, it makes another data point on the landscape that we're dealing with. Archaic peoples, for those that aren't familiar, it's a period from about 10,000 years ago up until about 3,000 years ago, in which, for the most part, Indian peoples were relying off the land without any agricultural crops. The agricultural crops are actually just starting to come in, things like squash and gourds and sunflower. But for the most part, they're relying on wild plants and wild seeds. And you have access, you can go out and easily from this single spot. You could potentially live all year round here if you wanted to. You could live all year round. So it's an important place in the history. I mean, it's going to be in the history books for years to come.
In our little booklet, I think Christie drew up a comparison between the Allscheid Rock Shelter and Campbell site,
You're right.
and this one, and she's got a nice graph thing in the booklet.
Yeah, and his little booklet that is on sale at Coquille Mountain State Historical Sites, and I assume
Yeah.
it's at the History Museum here in Monroe County, so you should get at Mel to autograph a few copies for you.
I did already this morning.
Oh, you did? We were late.
At 3:30 in the morning when I couldn't sleep.
Oh, I see. There was no one else around. Okay, but anyway, so it's an important place on the landscape. Probably one of the first people that may have visited here. There's a C up on the rock shelter with an R in it, and it's just to the lower left of that. I don't know if you can see it. And Brian reminded me about that graffiti. That could very well be the initials of one of the early archaeologists that surveyed here in Monroe County between about early 1840s and 1860s. His name was Charles Rau. He was from Germany. He came over with what they called the 49ers. I guess it was really 1850 and 1860. What oftentimes people call the Latin farmers. These were well-educated Germans that were caught up in an upheaval in Central Europe and Prussia at that time, and many of them left. They didn't remain behind because of the politics. So many of them came to the St. Louis area, and he came to St. Louis. He was trained at the University of Heidelberg, and so he had a degree in things like mineralogy and chemistry, and so he ended up teaching in the schools in Belleville. And I'm not sure when or how he got his interest in archaeology, whether it was in Europe as a young person. Certainly archaeology at that time was very important. They had found the Neanderthal skull at that time, which is very, very old. But he got involved in Belleville. The kids would bring him artifacts. He would buy them from him. There's even stories of him having threatened some of the kids to get their artifacts. But he was a crotchety old German by the time he left. He left at the beginning of the Civil War and then went to New York City and then had to teach Irish school kids, which he really detested. And then he went on and became the first archaeologist at the Smithsonian. But he did some excavations in the quarry up above Dupo, the Columbia quarry there at Dupo, and had a series of stone box graves. In his notes, he talks about the rock house, rock shelter over the other Columbia quarry. And we're going to go back. Did you ever see if there was that CR was over there too?
Over at Rock House?
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah. So we're going to try and track that puzzle down. But he was a fairly important archaeologist at that time in the history. Very, very well educated. In fact, he was going to be involved in one of the medical schools that were trying to start up in St. Louis, teaching students chemistry and things like that. But he ended up going back out east. The other unique find are the what some people call hominy holes. You see them in Kentucky and other parts of Illinois. They're very unique. I don't think we've come up with an answer. I'll let Brian and Mel address that. They've sat there and they've pounded these holes, and you can see how they go down as much as 18 inches.
At least, yeah.
At least 18 inches. So it's a real enigma. So if anyone's looking for a puzzle to figure out why they were doing that, that's another thing for maybe some of our younger students to pursue. Are there any questions that you have? There's just a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of, hopefully Christie will finally get her dissertation done at some point. And certainly encourage you. With what Mel has done here, I mean, you all working with the bluff tops in particular in their preservation, the importance of stewardship. I'm working on a preservation effort up around the mounds. We're trying to get the other mound groups, the ones at Pulcher, at Oklahoma Hill and Pulcher, or Dupo, and out in Lebanon, and in East St. Louis, believe it or not. We just met with the new mayor of East St. Louis. So we're trying to get them under some kind of national park umbrella. That doesn't mean that the national park runs these, but it at least gets that designation so people can begin to visit these other sites. But sites like this are just as important in telling the story of Native peoples here, not only in Monroe County, but the whole Mississippi Valley. So feel free to ask me questions. If you want to do it individually, that's fine as well. Mel, did you want to talk about your hominy holes?
I can. Okay, one thing you gotta realize that according to the, the geologist, that this was much larger at one time. And maybe 6,000–7,000 years ago, they had a bad shakeup according to Brad. Like some of these boulders came down, like the one to the rear over there. That came off of that wall. That big stone with all the holes bored in it, that we figured slid off of this thing here and hit the ground and fell into the thing. And what do they call it, roof drop, John?
Yeah.
Okay, and
Fall, yeah.
but we hit stones everywhere. In fact, right here, Kristen had tried to go down and she ran into rock at 1 meter or a little over 3 feet. Right on the other side, and she went all the way to the bottom also there. I tried to get to the bottom and it's just muck. So I kind of backed away from it. It's terrible. But anyhow, it was much larger. When they talked, this thing continued on around. And there's another little shelter down there. I call it the low rent district, you know. But this thing was much larger back, let's say 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years ago. So what you see now is after the roof had slid off, fell over, whatever. On these hominy holes, I don't know if John them agree with me. I mean, me and the archaeologists didn't always agree with everything. They had some things and I didn't buy them. But over there, you'll see I had an idea that Brian and I were digging here. By the way, this top 3 we found pottery.
Yeah.
What, 4,000 pieces, Brian?
Yeah,
At least.
John was nice enough to let me sit in on a ceramic analysis course
Right.
over at Wash U, and Christie identified 111 different vessels.
Yeah, but once you got down to the level we're standing on, that would be prior to the invention of pottery, right?
Right.
We don't, anytime you find a piece of pottery now, it's a rodent maybe perhaps took it down or, so it shouldn't be here. But on these stones, we found, and we had wheelbarrows full of these round, hard stones. Some of them you'll see under your feet, and there was evidence that a lot of them had been fired. I mean, you heated white, red hot rock. Anyhow, it's a long story how we found it out, but anyhow, I think Brian agrees with me that we think that they used these stones to put and we found, another thing I'm missing. On this level where we're standing, we found like 40 grinding stones. We might have one here. I think there's one on the table. We keep coming up, but we were using to weight down our canvases with and stuff. Grinding stones, but it was all on this level. So and there was a lot of activity here at that time. It was like a processing center. That's okay. You don't have to agree with everything I said.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. But this is a personal thing that Brian and I spent a lot of time out here, and a lot of time just thinking. And our idea was that they heated these stones up. First of all, they crushed these stones, or crushed this, I would say hickory and walnut mostly. And the stones are made out of like a soft sandstone. So they weren't used to braid hard seed corn and stuff. I mean, it wouldn't take it. And there are a lot of them, when you dig them out, they look like they were chipped out yesterday, and most of them are concave on both sides. They, I don't think they're counted using one side or whatever, but they flip them. And most of them have, on both sides, they have this. So with all the stuff that we, and it's in my book, my theory on it,
That's all right.
but anyhow, I experimented, and we take the heat the rocks up, and if you noticed, all these holes in that rock are oval shaped. They're not round like you would think. And the theory there was if you put a round rock in a round hole, you could never retrieve it, right? So if you had an oval shaped hole, they could slide a tongs of some sort down to retrieve the rock and replace it with another hot rock or whatever, and bring this meal or this nut meat ground up to a boil. And then they would take it over to this stone over here. If you notice this, Brian and I, it was the first one we found. And by the way, Brian and I were the first ones to ever see these, except indigenous people. You know,
Yeah.
we were all these stones were covered up. So when we found these, wow, what we get into here. But over there, that hole is what, 22 inches deep or something?
Yeah, something like
But at the top, if you
That's
go
the
over there and
biggest
look at it, it's a big hole, and at the top there's a little saddle goes across, and with a little retainer indentation. And we're thinking that they took the oil out of here, and of course there's some dirt and water and stuff. But oil will float on top of water. So we think that they took it over there, and that was their refining stone. That they put the oil in there and brought it to the top, and as it spilled over into this hole, that they could take a little gourd cup or whatever and dip it out, and I don't know what they used it for. I guess they ate it, huh, John?
Yep.
So, but anyhow, it was a busy place, because we found 40 of these things later. So I mean, it was and Brian and I, we used to stand on top and make jokes about it. But the little boys, you know how they like to whiz on things. And the poor ladies were down here working, and they would, buttholes, you know, get out. And they'd run. But there was things that we kind of surmised.
Are you letting us know
There was a lot of
about
beer
your?
involved with that.
I'm telling on myself a little bit, but not too bad. I know boys. But I'm just trying to think. But anyhow, I devised a little deal, and I think Fred is sitting on it. Yeah, I devised a little thing, and how did they make these holes? Well, I found a stone, and it's in the museum, right over there, about 30 centimeters down or something, off that thing there, and it failed. I mean, you know, it broke. And I tried pounding a hole. It was after about 7 or 8 pounds, I could get 1/8 of an inch. And that was my first thing. Then I discovered accidentally that the rain hit it out there. I could come over with my wife's spoon. She's probably wondering where it's at. Or where it's been. But she's got another one at home. But anyhow, I found out after it rained on it, that sandstone got real soft. You could scoop out 1/2 inch. So, and then I think that they used this other stone to keep the thing nice and slick and smooth all that as it went down. And I tried it all out, it works. So this is what I come up with. It may be a stupid idea, but it's good as what I've seen. So.
One thing about the Hominy holes, it seems like everything that I've read, and there's a lot of these down in Kentucky, they're all under the drip edge. So, I mean, if the water's gonna drip off, these holes are always in the dry, they're not out in the weather. So all the other sites that I've read about and seen, there's one over on Rock House Creek also, it's under an overhang too. So they're always in the dry.
Yeah. But there's a few around the county. We found one that as they were making their hole, they didn't realize how thick the rock was, and they punched through the bottom. Well, it's kaput. They lost it. But there's a few around the county, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, 16, nowhere in the world have they found 16 on board in a, like Patty Joe was saying, that maybe down in Kentucky there'd be 3 or 4 or something, but nowhere where they find 16. So this is a busy place. Well, questions, please. Again, we're gonna tell you something.
One other thing of interest is not always what you find, it's what you don't find. And we didn't have any axes here.
No.
And you would think of, a wooded area like this, you would find an axe or two, but there were no hard stone axes here. And another thing I find intriguing is that there are times, based on the carbon dates, where there was no one here for hundreds of years. And then all of a sudden they would come back and use this intensely. So I find that kind of interesting too, that, it's not always what you find, it's what you don't find.
My mother, when she was living, she was here, and she said, how did you ever find this place? Or how did the Indians ever find it? Well, Mom, there wasn't roads out here. They just kind of meandered around and
Following the creek.
Hey,
habitable,
Mel,
so,
what's the origin of the pottery?
what is the origin?
Yeah, where,
I'll let John answer that question.
Well, I think you basically had, as I remember, late woodland pottery,
And some Mississippi.
and a little bit of Mississippi, which would be related to Cahokia. And, I mean, there are Mississippian peoples throughout Monroe County.
Oh.
Yeah, so there are other occupations around. In terms of origin, I mean, it's just part of the
was
population.
it brought in here?
Yeah, it would have been brought in. They would have come here, and probably, whether it was just for a seasonal reason or whether they lived here for a small period of time, it would have probably been a small family unit or something like that. So there,
How about Mill Creek? Did you find any of the Mill Creek chert here?
No,
No?
we will find Mill Creek Church, you're familiar with
it
that.
would not been unusual, but I don't remember, Brad would have noticed that, and it would have been in the upper part of the.
Well, we found some points that were probably Mill Creek.
You did? Okay.
I mean, it's Snow White and,
No.
no?
It's Berlin.
Okay. I take that back.
I think it was, is it called Cobden? I think
Yeah.
that was probably the most common, and there's
Cobden church?
multiple
Yeah. And there-
colors of it.
Yeah,
Some
and
of
some of that,
rust colored, some of it's kind of green.
K. Olin? Any K. Olin?
I don't think any, the Cobden, actually in Monroe County, some of the chert is very similar. It's from the same geological deposit. The Cobden he's referring to is in southern Illinois. Where the apple orchards are down there, they're large quarries. In fact, the chert is also in Indiana and in Kentucky. And it was a desired chert, 2,000 years ago. You wouldn't have necessarily seen it with the Mississippi. But some of the local chert here is very similar. It's in the same geological formation, so it's very dark gray. Not quite as dark as the Cobden.
I don't know what's worth mentioning. Brad went through all my collection.
Yeah.
He labeled everything, he's a last word on some of these lithics, right?
Yeah.
But he found, I don't know how many points, 5 or 6 or 2 at the time, and found more since then. But he said he has never seen anything like it. He told me I could name them. He said, whatever he called it. He had never seen any points made like this, and Brian knows what I'm talking about. They look a little bit like a big sandy, only they're smaller, and he said he's never seen anything like it. He said, so there might have been one Indian that was doing this sort of work on his point. And they were all different, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, over the years, we have some in the museum that, a couple of them, correct, Brad, that predate this site, that they never carried in, maybe with some older people. Some, what do you call them?
There were a couple of Dalton points.
Dalton, that's the word I was looking for, right? Dalton's and who looked at it? Bob Ford, I don't know if you know him or not. He's got the largest collection I've ever seen. You gotta go out there and see it. It's amazing. The what? Oh, okay. But anyhow, he looked at a couple of them, and I don't say he's an expert on, but he said these are definitely. One was a wannabe Clovis, which really goes back 12,000 years, perhaps.
Yeah, 12,000 years.
And these were obviously drug in here. They got a word for it, was it?
Carried in.
That's the word I'm trying to
Write
find.
that down. Curated.
It was laden or something, I don't know. Carried them on their backs.
Yeah. What they're looking for is curated.
How many people lived here at any one time, do you think?
Oh, that's a hard one to answer. sir. I don't think you would ever have seen a crowd like this.
Well, but, with 40 grinding holes on this level, does that tell us something? That on this level that we're standing on, and that's where we found most of the grinding stone.
At the upper part.
Yeah, where we're standing.
Yeah.
And, gee, they had 40 of them, and when you hit a rock on the bottom level, you almost knew before you picked it up it was a grinding stone.
Well, especially if you weren't finding them deeper.
We didn't find them shallower. We found them on this level, most of them.
Right.
Most of them.
But going beneath that,
We did.
okay, so again,
Right over here where them buckets are sitting,
there's some more.
I think it was you and I, wasn't it, Fred?
Yeah.
We found a big grinding stone down underneath those buckets. What was it doing down there? I mean, it kind of blew my mind. But, we're talking about a whole centimeter, a whole meter down, And all of a sudden, here was this grinding stone down there at the bottom of that unit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just look at the trees with all the oaks and hickories. I mean, just processing those nuts.
Oh,
I mean, your idea of tying the hominy holes into them.
Could they have lived elsewhere close by and used this more as a processing center or
there's
You know,
several,
yeah.
there's several rock shelters on the main creek, Horse Creek. There's some beautiful ones down there. There's one down there, Dugan, what's his first name?
Yeah.
You and Cricket looked at it. We took you over there, and it's beautiful. I mean, it just looks like a cathedral. I mean, it's not as tall as this. And I don't know if the midden, what we're standing on is midden, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's at a certain level.
Yeah, okay. But anyhow, we don't know how deep he goes there, but God, has he got a collection of stuff that he's found on his rock shelter. And that is down Horse Creek. And there's several rock shelters down here. This little thing here is not Horse Creek. This is just a little drainage. And Rock House Creek, there's several on it. And I think what makes this unique is these big stones, and that nowhere they found anything like that,
Right. You'll have to get it in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Did they,
And go ahead.
no, I was just going to ask, in any of these shelters, did they do any carvings, or did not
Well,
Indians do that?
Well, you can see Freddie did,
Oh, right.
and Charles Rao, and then there's some other ones in there if you can make them out. They're very old. There's one dated 68. Well, I bought it in 72, and it was already looked old. So it had to be an 1860 or 58 carving. That was one thing too that Brian had said, or John. But one thing was common was somewhere in the neighborhood when you find these hominy holes, there was and I don't have the picture. I was going to bring it along and run out of space there, but where they carved the people's feet.
Yeah.
That was seemed to go along with these hominy holes, and this thing is about within a quarter of a mile. But somewhere in the neighborhood, they carved your feet. What significance that was? But like when we looked at down on Rock House, you go around the bend, and then we found all kinds of stuff carved in the rock there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you do find the rock art, the petroglyphs and stuff.
We've looked at it.
Yeah, I mean, it would not have been unusual to have had it here. It's a fairly soft sandstone, so erosion is a potential problem. I mean, there are other sites in Monroe County in which you have rock art, and like he was saying, the feet, the pictographs.
See, we'll go with it. Somewhere in the neighborhood there was somebody.
And the rock
And they were carved into the rock. And there's one down there, I can't say where it's at, because you didn't see these, did you, John? No, we weren't able to go down there. I was lucky. The guy who lives on the end of the ditch, it's his brother owns it, and he says, "I will go there." So we went and looked at it. My brother had seen him, but you're against a cave wall, and it looked like a Bigfoot and a small child's foot side by side. And you just look at it, you look like they just stepped in soft mud.
Huh.
And they're there, but that's in the neighborhood too. It's a little, I would say, quarter of a mile.
And those feet carvings are associated with rock shelters in Kentucky too.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, are
very
they?
common.
Huh.
And we never could find, we looked around here, we couldn't find the feet, and finally we did. We had somebody tell us where they were.
Yes, Ben.
Were there any?
Is there any evidence of burial sites or burial mounds?
Not in here.
Is there any evidence of burial sites? I got a young friend, a lot of people know him as Delane Dare. He does, and he wants to come over here and Clyde and I, Limestone, when we first had this years ago, before we ever started digging. We were looking for burial sites. We went up atop the hill up here, and boy, here's all these mounds, just all over the woods. And we thought, oh, God, we found it. And I was scratching around. He was on one, he was scratching around on the other. And all of a sudden, I looked up and I seen the church. And I seen the cemetery. And I said, Clyde, drop your shovel. I think we're. Here was where they dumped the excess dirt off in the woods of little gobs. And we really thought we had, but no, to answer your question, we have not found where they were buried. And Elaine wants to come out here and do something. Maybe he can find a gravesite. I don't know. And, but they did do cremation too, right?
Yeah, there's some of them are cremated.
Huh. Were there any obsidian points found here?
No obsidian. It's, we do get it in Illinois,
Yeah.
and particularly with a period we call Middle of Woodland, which would have been about 2,000 years ago.
Okay.
And so you see it in Ohio and you see it here in Illinois, and it's coming, they've traced it back to the Rockies.
Right.
Any other questions?
The early and middle woodland period seems to be vacant here.
Yeah.
There really wasn't much that came out of that period of time. It would have been roughly what, John,
Before that.
2,000 years ago?
Yeah.
Roughly.
Before that, it was a busy place at one
That's
time.
right, but there was
I
a
think-
gap at about 2,000 years
Is
ago.
this possible, John? You know, Kristen tells me that what we're standing on represents 5,000 years ago, and the whole thing goes down another 3 meters, which is 10 feet. That would constitute 3,000. Does that make sense to you? How we could be at this is the way it looked at 5,000 years ago. Is that possible that we could be the top 3 feet took 5,000 years, and then from here on down it took 3,000?
Yeah.
That's workable.
Yeah, that's workable. I mean, you'd
Okay.
have to look at how the erosion of the,
Right.
bluff.
That's something I want to bring up. I don't know, Jim, or who wants to. If you tread lightly, and that you can walk right around up there and get on top. It's very pretty up there. If you look down, there's lichens, and I think what do you call him? The man who did the plant study all around here.
It's a sandstone glade up there, kind of. There's a sandstone.
Well,
glade
yeah,
up on
and
top
the
of
dirt
it.
is very shallow. It's mostly sandstone up to a point.
Yeah.
But I think they identified like 3 different types of lichens. And when you look down on it, it looks like a carpet. So it is pretty. If you go up there, just walk softly and.
Don't do anything that Mel mentioned.
Yeah, and no whiz on it. I don't think the women would, but the men would.
May I ask, what did you find that made the discovery that Cahokians were here?
It was a piece of pottery, and it was part of a jar that had a design on it. And that particular, it's a very, what we would call a fine ware. It'd be like your good dinnerware. And it's called Ramian size. So it's very common. It's produced at Cahokia. And we see it all across the upper Midwest from Wisconsin, even as far south as Mississippi. So this material, these kind of vessels are being traded around the Midwest. Yeah. And so this is one of the places that someone obviously came at some point. And sometimes these places, particularly where you have springs and caves, are sacred places for Indian peoples. This doesn't seem to be the case. If you to turn these into ceremonial type of objects, but we don't have any evidence that that's the case. So.
One connection to Cahokia, we did have a conch shell bead.
Oh, you did? That's
Yeah.
right. Okay.
If you've been up to Cahokia,
shell
the
bead.
one guy's laying on like 20,000 of them or something like that. We have a bead that's just like that.
When we found it, we rushed in. We caught Brad,
Yeah.
and Brad took one look at it. He said, "Well, that came from the Gulf of Mexico."
Yeah.
Just England right off the top of the head. He said, "That came from the Gulf of Mexico." So there was trading, and a lot of stuff you find in Cahokia. These conch shells and beads are from the Gulf, right?
Right. They're actually bringing the whelks, the conchs that are whelks up to Cahokia, and they're cutting them up, and then they have the industry to produce. They have drills, church drills to produce the beads. And so someone lost one of their pieces, one of their strands. So.
Found a marble about this big around here.
You didn't
Oh,
lose it.
lately, huh?
No.
I didn't lose it though. that what he said? I said, I'm hard of hearing, but I had a feeling what he said.
There should have been a whole cache of them.
We found some small ones. Brian said that the French introduced these marbles to the Indians. Is that going on with it? He said the French, the Indians didn't really know what a marble was until the French came back in 1700.
Yeah.
That they introduced it.
The game.
So I found a big one. It's a we call it a boulder. You know, if you ever
Was
shot
it-
marbles.
Oh, no, the shooters, yeah.
A shooter, yeah. But we found that it was over here. Okay. So there's more stuff buried. And I know Brian said we didn't find anything agricultural or heavy duty axes or anything. We found some sharp, what do you call them? Gouges or
Woodworking
something.
term.
Yeah, but we
Find any
haven't
money?
found anything really,
No
really
money.
heavy duty. You know, like they were killing mastodons or anything with. You know.
One thing you have to understand too, the top 3 feet was really stirred. I mean, where you could have old points laying up on top, and we would run into 3 feet below the surface. We'd run into a piece of glass jar, a mason jar.
That
So
was another
something
thing, too.
went on there. There were groundhog holes all just strewn all through here.
Yeah,
So a
you-
lot of
you know
times
that,
in the,
John.
where
Yeah,
the mound was
finding
outside the
3
groundhog
feet
hole,
down.
that was a good spot to put the
And-
screen.
That was common too in the 30s, wasn't it, during the Depression? The pot diggers, the pot hunters,
Oh, yeah.
that they came through and raided these things and they dug them. They were looking for intact pots, I suppose.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we found a piece of wire and a ring of a fruit jar,
Yeah.
3 feet down against the wall. And I think when they got done, they had their little refreshments.
Yeah.
And when they got done, they just threw the jar against it. That's where it landed. And some of these rocks we found back there on the wall, it seems like from maybe where you're standing on back, it had been some excavation previously. But some of these grinding stones were laid at a crazy angle, you know,
Stacked.
and where they didn't pay no attention to them. They didn't want them. And they just pitch them and they just kind of shoveled one from one side to the other. And they had a pile of dirt that the thing would lay like that, and that's where we found it. But when we got to this level, out here, they were all laying flat, just like where they got up and quit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Anybody want to walk upstairs? I'm John.
I'll go, yeah.
Huh? Well, I'll let Jim. When you want to lead him up there, or
Take a little walk up to the top.
yeah, you know the way up there.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably limit to how we cover because there is some really fragile areas up there.
Yeah.
But at least give you a look at it and give you a sense of what it's like to look
And you
down.
can walk this little.
Yeah, I can do that. Something else too I want to mention in your presentation. Did you bring any of your books out today with you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, Mel did make a book about this area, and it is for sale today. I think it's only $8. $7. Of course, he'll be glad to autograph it for you. And it's really a good book. I've got it. I think it's fascinating, and it really captures this site and its significance.
Well, you know, I had to show it to John first.
Right, exactly. I mean, he made sure it was done professionally.
Well, he said,
And
he knew I was going to
supported.
put it to print. And he said, let me see this. And I warned him. I said, I'm not John Kelly. You know,
Right.
This is me speaking.
So that's one item, and the other item I want to bring up is too, how many have been to the Monroe County History Museum? I'm sure a lot of you have. Well, you know, there's a new edition in the works, and Mel actually has an exhibit about this site there, but we've got some really good news, and Norma Reheis, who's president of the museum, will tell you about that.
Well, we've been busy adding an extension, another edition, and it's going to be called the Allscheid Metzger Gallery, thanks to the support of Melvin and Bob Metzger, who have made the funds available to do that. And he is going to be expanding his exhibit on this rock shelter, and we're really excited about that. When the tours come in from the schools and even from St. Louis area, it is amazing how attractive that particular exhibit is to the kids. They are so enamored with seeing all the things that are on display there. So we're really excited. The inside is about finished. We should start moving in. And if we don't get any more rain, we might get the outside done and get the landscape finished. Mel, thank you for an awesome day here. This has been great. Good job, people.
When are you having a grand opening again? When do you anticipate?
Sometime in July.
Okay, the date's not set yet.
No.
Still trying to get the building finished on the inside.
Well, we're trying to get dry weather.
I got you. Okay, very good.
But thank you so much.